Paintball nerd.
Today's guest on Paintball Nerds Fun 5 has been playing paintball since 1988. He went pro in 1990 with Fatal Swoop. He's played with Washington Rain, Image, Ironmen, Avalanche. He's been involved with Push since 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, the Flying Hawaiian, Ted Kunewa.
Hey, Ted. Hey, Isaac. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely, man. Pleasure to have you on. You have quite the career in paintball. A lot of stories.
You could say that. I mean, 12 years playing pro, retired, then came back to paintball. Yeah, there's quite a bit of stories. Knowing most of the people in the industry, it's from playing. It's been a long road. It's been over 25 years now.
Coming this year. Tell us a little bit about your journey to pro, and then about your journey as well in pro.
My journey into pro was pretty much by happenstance. A friend of mine had a 16th birthday at this old paintball field off the 14 in Southern California, Los Angeles area, and I just fell in love with it at that point in time, and I did everything I could to get a gun, to start playing, and but I was still in high school. I was 16 years old and still working, and doing jobs and stuff like that. So it really wasn't the serious nature that we'll see people play today. But what happened about when I graduated high school, I was playing local tournaments and such, and nothing really big. And I got on this team called Fields of Fury, and it was a home team. We had this little, the field was the one off the 5, between the 5 and the 14 Valencia. You could see the field is up in the hills. Actually, I think it just shut down a couple of years ago, so it's been around for quite a while. And Mike House and a guy named Tex with Fatal Swoop said, "Hey, why don't you come play with us?" And I'm like, "Sure, let's." I'm all up for it. So I played a little bit with those guys, and then I went to college, and I'm like, okay, I'll come back and play. And I went up in Oregon and went to college at a college called Pacific University, and had a great time. Played a little football up there, and came back after a semester and a half, and started, got back with those guys and started playing over again, and they took me to Vallejo up in the Vallejo. It was a lively event. I think it was called the Vallejo Masters. And that was my first real taste of professional paintball. First time I saw the Ironmen. First time I saw, God, what was the name of that team? Pistano and those guys used to play for it. But a bunch of teams, and met Jim Lively, met all those guys. And there was no awe at that point in time. You'd heard about these guys, but I mean, they were tearing it up. But yeah, that's the first time the Ironman actually freight trained us. First time I met Daryl Trent, met all those guys. So it was very much of a wake up experience. Like, wow, I love this game. This is what I love to play. So that was my first professional event.
Right on. So. And then how did you get to the other teams?
Oh, that's a big question. So I played with Swoop for about 2 years, and then I moved to Washington, and I went to with Swoop. We went to Dallas. We went to Nashville. We went to a couple other big events over the Lively series or the Great Western series. And then I decided I had to move to Washington. I just made a life change, and basically I kind of almost put paintball in my rearview mirror. It was like all right, well, now it's time to grow up and do some real stuff. And when I went to Washington, I kind of sought out a local field, and Splat Attack actually was the local field, and I went out there and knew no one, and ran into a couple guys from a team called Washington Rain,
Hmm.
and they were just a local team that went to local events, and they were running around with PMI threes, illustrators, and phantoms. I mean, that was the gun of the choice. I mean, it's the gun of the choice, but the guns that they were using. I was rocking an Aaron Carter Buzzard that that Aaron had made me, and um, yeah, I had. They're like, oh, that's a weird looking pump gun. I'm like, oh yeah, but it shoots fast. Oh, oh, hold on a second. Siri turned on somehow. Hold on, let me turn that off. There we go. And so they asked me to come to. I played like one day with them at the field, and they said, "Hey, we're having the tournament tomorrow, and would you play with us?" And I'm like, a guy named Darren Molinen. Um, I said, "Sure." Yeah, I have nothing to lose, and so we went to this tournament, and it was at Casey Crusaders, who's actually still around. Went to this tournament, and I was watching some of the earlier games. I'm like, well, this is not California paintball. These
Hmm.
guys, I mean, it's the old sit and wait type of deal. And I just walked up to Darren and I said, Darren, do you trust me? And he's like, I just met you. I'm like, I know, but when it comes to paintball, he's like, sure. And he was up for it. I go, we're going to run right down the middle of the field and shoot everything on the way in. And he's like, okay. I'm like, ready? He's like, are you sure? And we told the other three guys, were like, we're running down this field. And the guys are like, well, we'll watch the flag. I'm like, watch the flag all you like. It's not going to matter. So Darren and I ran down, shot off five guys in probably 30 seconds, 40 seconds. These
Nice.
guys had never seen this, not me playing, but that style paintball where it just, and
Were
we
you
just,
barefoot or no?
oh, no, no. I believe there was snow on the ground,
Oh
or
wow.
it was colder. I can't exactly remember. It might have been muddy. So I don't,
Well, so there's
I think,
there's stories of you playing barefoot. Where do those come from?
oh, that comes from playing in San Diego, Borderlands.
Yeah.
Um, they so we were playing over. There's the Reed Field. I don't know if you're familiar with
Oh yeah.
the,
I grew
the
up playing there.
so there's the creek, the river field, the creek field,
Yeah.
and we were playing in the creek field, and we were kind of walking it, and I'm looking at it, and it's all sand in that area through all the way up to the river, and I was like, yeah, I'm I'm going barefoot. And like at that time, we had combined a couple players from. Well, we had gotten other players, but Jeremy Salm was on that team. Darren was still on that team. John Richardson wasn't quite there yet, but
And what team was
um,
this?
this is Washington Rain,
Okay, gotcha.
and we were. This is later. This is a couple years later than what we were just talking about, but we yeah, we ran down there, and I took my shoes off, and I'm Hawaiian. My feet are built like, you know, there's probably thicker leather on my feet than most handbags. So yeah, I just played, and I played the whole morning session with no shoes,
Hmm.
and I was bunkering guys, shooting guys. I just had more traction when I wasn't carrying weight. Um, and yeah, I remember jumping over a bunker, and me jumping over a bunker, shooting a guy, crawling to my next position, and the ref behind me goes, "When the fuck are your shoes?" Excuse my French. And I'm like, yeah, and I just ignored him. And by the afternoon session, that was a Great Western event, I believe. It might have been the nipple. I can't remember which one. By the next day, it was outlawed. You had to wear shoes. It was not in the
Because
rule book.
you shot too many people.
Oh yeah, I like to believe I shot everyone, but I believe any professional paintball player is always we shoot everyone. It doesn't matter if someone got bunkered in the head by crystal soil or whatever, but we all shoot everyone. So yeah,
Yeah.
I shot everyone. So,
So
but
tell me about
no, yeah.
the move to Image and Ironman. Like, just tell me what when those transitions occurred and what that was like.
Um, so the move to Ironman was a let's go to Image first. So Image, Tommy Malczewski calls me up and says, "Hey, we're going to Poughkeepsie, which is a nipple event that was kind of made up because another event got canceled. I forgot what was, but
Hmm.
and Washington Rain at the time and Fatal Swoop because I actually they're both playing and I was able to play with both teams if one team didn't go, but I was primarily with Washington Rain. Um, what happened is that Tommy goes, "Hey, we're going. Can you and Ethan come?" I'm like, I think we can. We're not going. So we kind of piecemealed our team and actually went to multiple different teams in that event.
Hmm.
And Tommy said, "All right, we're gonna go." So he flies me out to Poughkeepsie. Um, we get out there, we're sitting there walking the field, and Tommy just gently walks up to me and says, "Hey, if we win this event, you play for us for the rest of the year." And at this time, Image hadn't. Image was a good team, but they hadn't shown that next level. I mean, you had Richie, you had Greg, you had Opie on there. Um, was Sharansky on the team at the time? I think Sharansky was on the team at the time. So all these phenomenal players that we've had on the team, and these guys are legends. Um, but they hadn't gotten to the next level. So and Ethan and I are good players. We're kind of different players, but I'm like, sure, Tommy, if you guys win this event, if we win this event, I'll play for Image next year. And at the time, it was basically myself and Darren running Washington Rain, and
Hmm.
it was kind of we were sponsorship. We did made sure tickets were purchased and all that stuff. So we're just kind of the the team managers of the team. Um, so I was kind of one of those flippant things. Yeah, sure, I'll play with you next year. Well, as happenstance comes, we win the event. We 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 went out there and kicked butt. We all played well, and we went to the event. And I'm like, Tommy's like, "All right, you're going to Europe with us, right?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, we're leaving for England in such and such time." And I forgot what the time frame was, and I'm like, "Sure, I'll go to Europe. I'll go to England with you." And WDP was throwing their first hyperball event in England,
Hmm.
and so I went there, and there's some video of me running around in jorts. I just realized I was wearing jean shorts, but I wore shorts all the time. I wore shorts all the time playing. That was the other kind of thing is I wore
Yeah.
shorts and t-shirts and stuff. Um, so anyway, we went out and played the event, and then Tommy kind of called on his request, and then and at that time I'm like, well, if I don't do this with Washington Rain's not probably going to, it's going to be much harder for them to continue.
Right.
And I had to tell Tommy no, and I apologize. I was like, but we had a great time out there. We had Jed and those guys. That's how I got kind of hooked up with WDP, and yeah. So I also played with the
So
Bonsai Bandits with them too. So
okay. So how long did you play with Image before you went to Bonsai Bandits?
it was just those two events.
Okay. All right.
I
And
played a
then
couple of 5-man events with them, but I think as professional paintball players, we usually don't count the 5-mans from back then, so it's kind of It's kind of like when you
Same,
say
same,
you're
same
the
now.
night.
Yeah.
Yeah, from the 1995 World Championships that you won the 5-man event. You're like, oh, that's nice. How'd you guys do in 10? So
Okay, so after Bonsai Bandits, it was Ironman, right?
no. So Bonsai. So I got hooked up with WDP and with Jacko and those guys, and they actually kept me in England um, after that deal, and I was in England for a while, and I started working on the Angel with uh, Rice, Jacko, and WDP. Um, and yeah, so for the next year with Rain, uh, I played with the Angel either in Europe or in the U.S., but I never actually played an event in the U.S. until the World Cup. They only had two Angels at the time.
Hmm.
So anyway, we played that event, and actually, Chris played with us with Washington Rain, and we had at the time we had Mark Knopp, we had Richardson, we had a bunch of guys, um, and we went out and took second at World Cup. There was an unfortunate event that happened, and where someone's gun didn't work, and anyway, we lost.
Is this the
I think
story
we lost.
with Chris and the breech open and the bolt in his hand and he's looking at you like
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that
So
story?
Chris, yeah. So Chris, I was playing with the Angel throughout the event, and one game we are playing against Bad Company, and Bad Company, Tommy, and those guys, and all those. They were a good team, and they were not a good
Hmm.
team, but we were playing very very well, um, and we were kind of rolling through teams. We back in those days, we 600 prelims. We were already 2-0 and in the semis. We blew through semis, and we're in the finals. And Bad Company, us, of course, Aftershock, and I think the All Americans might have been the All American. I can't remember the 13. So we had beaten both teams. So we're playing Bad Company, and I think we had already beaten them once, but we're playing them. And Chris had asked me if he could use the Angel. Um, as most people know who's ever played with Chris has the ability to break anything. So I legitimately walked to the rest of the team and said, all right, it's only one guy, but he wants to use this gun, and it's up to you folks to say yes, because I'm not going to say yes. And they said, oh, yeah, we're fine. Let him use the gun. I'm like, all right. Now this is I believe this was Angel 1. So this is the actual first Angel. Um no double trigger, single trigger, feed port. It actually shot phenomenally. It shot really, really well. So, and after every game, real quick background, after every game, Rice would come run up and go, hey, he'd take the gun from me and he'd go through it, make sure everything worked, and then he'd hand it back to me. So it's kind of like a pit crew just for one gun. So
Testing it out,
so
yeah.
testing, making sure everything's working. Um so we go and play the game, and I'm in the sub on the wire, on the show wire. There is a netting right next to me, and I'm using a cocker, and Chris is in the middle at the late at a big tube, and a big hyperball tube in the middle, and I'm shooting, and I don't hear anything shooting from the center, and I back up from the sub, and I turn and look at Chris, and Chris literally has the bolt in one hand. You just stand on it. The breech is open, and he's like literally licking it, trying to push it back in. He had gotten so much crap on it that it
Oh
wouldn't go
man.
back in the gun. So I'm sitting there, and for whatever reason, Bad Company was playing a good game. They're beating us, and
Yeah.
I'm like, crap. So I see I see there's one guy in front of me. There's two guys in front of Chris. Chris has been not shooting for so long, they don't even know he's there, right?
Yeah,
So
they forget about him.
they kind of try to pin me out. I took two that one guy got me. I took one guy, traded with another guy, and I'm walking out the field. Well, Chris in Chris fashion does a dead man walk. He gets up, starts walking like he's walking out of bounds. A guy passes him. Well, at the time, Chris had a reputation of doing dead man's walk. It was kind of a famous thing for Chris. Well, between all of us, and also a lot of times Chris would get a bonus ball no matter what.
Mhm.
Um, so Chris is walking out, and they all ran by him except for one guy. One guy just lights him up, and Chris walks off the field. We lose the game. I
Yeah.
think we lost World Cup that year by like 3 points
Ugh.
because of kills. So yeah, that was a heartbreak year for us. That was basically, I believe that was 95 or 96, and that Wash and Rain was that I still today, no disrespect for any other player, any other team I played for, I still consider the best team I ever played with. I mean, players that came out of Washington Rain, Jeremy Somm, John Richardson, Mark Knopp, Chris played for us for a few tournaments.
Tell us
Danny
about
Adams.
your favorite memory in paintball. What really sticks out for you as far as memories from these days?
Uh, I there's not one particular memory. I mean, I can bring up a game where I shot a bunch of people. Those are great. I mean, you remember those, and you also remember those games that you just got your ass handed to you, right?
Yeah.
Um, I I think what I miss most about paintball when I finally retired, um, is the camaraderie. It was just
Mhm.
going out, going to Old Town, you know, jumping off the bungee jump without the bungee, doing these, doing you know, watching Rocky drive the cart into a pond, or um, all these different stories that I could tell. I might be banned for the rest of my life, but anyway, I could tell. But all the camaraderie, every team that I ever played with was the was what I remember, and what I really hold truth to my heart is like, more than any game that I played. I mean, I had a I had a game on ESPN where I legitimately probably shot 7 guys on a 10 man. It would have been great. I was talking trash the whole thing. At the end of the
I've seen
game,
that.
my gun's broken, and we lose the game. So yeah, I mean, that's not a joyful memory.
Yeah.
But we've had with Wash and Rain, we've won games at World Cup 10 mans in under 2 minutes.
Hmm.
Um, and so I mean, it was just hanging out with the guys. That was
Yeah.
my fondest memories. Good or bad, or even like when I came back in 2015 and played with, um, flew out to Living Legends. Paul and those guys took care of me, and it was really cool to see everyone. And like I said before earlier in the interview, is that all the guys that I played with, Telford, Maddie, um, Dave Thomas, Dave Youngblood, Brian Benini. There's so many. Jeremy Somm. They're all still intertwined in the industry in
Yeah.
some way or fashion or the other. And I had tons of great memories. Crystal Soya, um, Lane Wright. I mean, these guys were still in the industry when I came back in 2015, just to play, just to have fun. Travis Szymanski, all these guys were I played with, and I remember little Mike Paxson. I mean, he was never little, but he was a kid.
Yeah.
looking at the Iron Kids. Those were kids. I mean, they were young guys when I was playing, and look what those guys have turned into. They're just
Mm,
monsters. Some of them are still playing, for God's
yeah.
sakes. Um,
Who is your favorite person to play with?
there is a
You
guy.
pick a couple.
So yeah, there's a. I mean, I love playing with Jeremy. Jeremy is such a tactician, very precise when doing, and I was kind of the wild man. I was very fast, and I'm not a small guy. I mean, when I'm actually about 40 pounds lighter now than when I played. When I came from football, I was 225, and I blew up to about 235 when I was playing. Um, I was that fast. So when I played with Jeremy, um, it was uh, it was good because we offset each other. Darren Mullen and Danny and Mark, all those guys, when we played together, we really fed off each other. We knew each other for years. I
You
mean,
know, it was confirmed that Jeremy Somm invented walking the trigger.
but um, I oh God, all right, I could give
Oliver
him that.
Lang, Oliver Lang, and Chris Lasoya confirmed it.
Yeah, well, because there were guys doing double triggers without the electronic trigger. I believe
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Well, Bad
So
Company would have probably had him on their spiders. The
yeah,
autococker had a
so
swing
there were
frame. Automags had a double trigger.
yeah automatics out there, but also you could bounce some of those triggers if I correct right, and a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
guys are doing that. But yeah, when the electronic con gun, well, again, I never played with a double trigger.
Mm,
So yeah,
yeah.
um, yeah. I mean, when Rain broke up, and legitimately Rain broke up when I left, they had to get sponsorship. I left to go to the Ironman. They had to get sponsorship. They had to do this stuff. So they combined with Bushwhackers with Ron Kilmore.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so they did that for about a year. I think about a year. And after that, Ed Portman went in and said, "We want all you guys." And at the time, Ed had asked me, and I'm like, you know, I was like, "Well, I appreciated Ed. I was in a different mode in my life." But yeah. So all those guys that I played with Rain were I had the best time playing with. But there is one other guy, and no one knows who he is except for the guys on Fatal Swoop. A guy named Emery, and Emery and I was we used to play. We were younger, but we used to have like games on the field. One thing with Washington Rain that we kind of became not not notorious for, but we did is that if we beat a team really fast, we would legitimately shoot each other to get the flagpole because kills didn't matter back then.
Yeah.
So we would literally have someone designated to walk away, and we'd play to get the flag. I can't tell you how many times I've been shot grabbing the flag by my own team, or I've shot somebody trying to grab the flag after we know we've won the game to do it. I believe we got multiple 1-for-1s on our own team because we'd spin and shoot that guy. So so the feel of that team, and we were a very serious team. Washington Rain was a no bullshit. We'd go out, we'd have some fun, but we'd be back by 10. Of course, when we had guest people on our team that weren't like that, i.e. Crystal Soya, that would not be held to them, but we would be back by 10. So
Yeah.
um so that was kind of, we took it serious. I mean, all of us worked. We had sponsorship, but I don't know if you know how sponsorship worked back then. You got a couple of things paid for as a pro team, but you primarily paid for a lot of things.
Hmm.
Um, Flights, rental cars, all the expensive stuff. Um, we had one rental car sponsorship, and we got like 40% off, which is phenomenal. Um, but we weren't the top tier team. We were a top tier playing wise, but marketing wise, I mean, you had Ironman, Aftershock, All Americans. Those are the three teams really that were taken care of. Like if you
Yeah.
hear about teams now that, nowadays every team, they get things paid for and all that stuff like that. Because you have a team manager, a team owner that does that. Back then, it was,
Hmm.
War Games would, send the Ironman places, and GAT or Die at the time, or Die later, they would pay for all these guys, and all the rest of the teams used to just get product. We used to come down to JT and walk through and pick out the product we wanted. So a lot of the guys that on Rain were the only true full time player at the time would probably be me,
Hmm.
um, and I still worked, but so we paid for everything. So it was that we took it seriously, that this is what we want to do. This is not just a hobby. We're gonna go out there and try to win. And we did a very good job at it. We had some bad breaks. Our roster probably wasn't as strong, but we played together really, really well. Now, when I play with the Ironman, you flip the script when it comes to sponsorship.
Yeah.
And at the time that I played for Ironman, uh, you know, die, yeah, 96, yeah, 96, yeah, 96. Um, Dave was on the team. JT was still around, and they picked up the tab for everything. We didn't have to worry
Hmm.
about anything. We got picked up, all of our gear, everything was given to us. Um, so we didn't have to do anything. So that was a relief on my side, because I always had to arrange all that. I always had to put that together.
Right.
Um, so that was kind of a huge relief for me. But I think what was missing at the time, I joined the team when Bobby left the team.
Hmm.
Now there's a bunch of different stories on how that happened. From my point of view, is I literally Bobby had been asking me to play with the team before he left, and then I thought that was a continuation of that when Dave and Shaner came up and asked me to play with them, and I did at the end of that meeting I found out Bobby had left. Well, I didn't know
Hmm.
how Bobby left, but I soon find out that Bobby was kind of pushed out of the team. Well, changes happen. I mean, that's just the
Yeah.
nature of the beast. Whatever happened after that, but anyway, the team wasn't the Ironman that I grew up watching or played with.
Hmm.
There was a lot of discontent. Not a lot of there 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 wasn't a lot of cohesiveness between the teammates, between the team.
Hmm.
I mean, the guys you have phenomenal guys. You have Clayton Scott, you have Marty Bush, Brian Benini, Shaner, yeah, YB, and Jamie. I mean, you have all these guys that are really good. I
Dirk.
mean, Maddie, yeah, Dirk. Trying to remember Dirk. I think I played one or two tournaments with Dirk, and then Dirk left. I can't remember, but Daryl Trent. Um, then you had Matty Marshall. Billy Wing was just starting to get on the team, and so we had all. I mean, these are legends in the game. I mean, you can say every one of these guys' names, and most people who've been playing this sport for a couple of years will know who the Ironmen are and know who these people are, because a lot of these people are
Hmm.
still in the industry. Um, but there's just no cohesiveness. There wasn't. I mean, and I think where Rain had that tight cohesiveness and where we played very well with, um, that was lacking. And I think the seriousness of playing this sport for Rain, that was also lacking because the Ironman had been on the top end for many years. So, Rabikoff, forgot about him. So
Yeah.
Rabikoff and I we joined the team at the same time. So, and oh yeah, there's another team I played for. I played for Washington, Houston Heat too. Forgot about that. Um, but yeah. So it was. It just wasn't. I mean, I seriously went to the Ironman thinking this is my heyday. I'm going to cash in the chips that I built to becoming a good player, and come play with the Ironman and do the Carl Malone thing or Gary Payton thing and try to win a championship.
Hmm.
Um, with Rain, we had won. With Rain, we had won the amateur championship twice and took second in the pro once. So, I felt that at the time, I'm like, well, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing this, but let me do this, and then I'd also don't have to worry about anything. I can just go play.
Yeah.
So needless to say, that didn't work out the way I had planned. I only played for them for about a year. Um, and then I kind of at that time took a sabbatical from paintball because of my grandfather got sick, and I basically took care of him. So, um, but yeah, um,
So what do
that
you
was
what would you say it takes? What advice would you give, Ted, to someone who wants to make their way up the ranks in paintball to play professionally? I know it's been a while, but you were still at the top of the industry, and you still work in the industry. So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to work in the industry and make it to the top professionally?
ah, got to be built right. I don't think you can. you, I mean, no, I'm joking. Um, I think I think I, the way the game's played today, um, I don't think that changes what you still have to do. You still have to be a good player. You still have to have that. There's that instinct that you. I mean, of course, I don't have the physical attributes or the physical abilities I used to have. I mean, I was one of the fastest guys in the league. Um, I believe the guy on the walker next to me could beat me now to the first bunker. So you got to have your physical talent. You have to be able to be serious about the sport and get out there and do it. But you have to have that. I think you know what I'm talking about. You have to have that mental capacity to make moves, to hold back,
Hmm.
make the right moves, or play with your teammates. I mean, yeah, if you have a guy that is a go getter, let's just say Chris Osoya, you let Chris do what he needs to do, and you support him, because every team has to have support people and stuff like that. So you just got to find your way. I think the talent part will always come out. If you're there, um, he's got to kind of make that work. I mean, back in my day, being aggressive was a huge attribute,
Hmm.
um, for many different reasons. But the guns weren't shooting. I know they're only shooting 11 balls a second now, whatever it is, 10.5. But they're shooting 10.5 from the start of the game to the end of the game. Back in the day when I first started playing, there were pump guns, and the cockers would shoot about 8 on a burst. So um, I think to play in today's game and then to continue on and make it a career for yourself. And I know it's a different era than when I played. You've got to be a good player. You got to be a good teammate. You got to represent your sponsors. Those are the guys that are taking care of you. If I mean, there's tons of stories back in the day where a sponsor would hand you a bunch of gear and you would literally take the strap off that sponsored gear, put on a new strap. You can't do that anymore. You got to represent. I mean, if you watch every other sport, NASCAR or any major sports, you see the first thing they do is they have the push hat on, the goggle next to them, and they thank their sponsors.
Hmm.
Um, I think some of the bigger. I think if you continue with that and the gratitude that you get um, from the sponsors and playing with your team well, I think that carries a lot of weight. And then when you can make your own decisions on what to wear and all that stuff like that, then you're good to go. And don't be
Do you have
stupid with your
any
money.
do you have any old paintball memorabilia? Anything that you cherish in your collection?
um, I a while back, an ex girlfriend of mine took all my paintball gear that she could find without me knowing it, and I had like an old Ironman jersey, a Washington Rain jersey. I think I even had an Image jersey, um, and I had trophies and medals, nipple events and winning one on ones and all those type of things. Magazine covers, had it all, and she put it all in shadow boxes and gave it to me for my birthday. So it was kind of like, here you go, and it was awesome. It was great. It was like I put it down in my. I live in Alaska at the time, and I put it down in my game room, my theater room, and it was really really cool. Um, Unfortunately, when I moved from Alaska back, when I relocated, um, those shadow boxes went into storage, and they were actually crated. Like we actually put them in car wood stuff so they wouldn't get broken. They were stolen
Hmm.
along with a bunch of other stuff, but they were stolen. So at this time right now, all I have of my stuff um, that I have left is I still have my autococker that Aaron Carter and I converted to a mini cocker. Um,
That's
Still have
cool.
that. I still have the buzzard, the original buzzard he made for me.
That's awesome.
Um, I um I got a couple of jerseys, Bonsai Bandit jerseys. Um, I remember I was playing with them. I came back. So my last competitive event that I went World Cup in 10 man was in 97, 96, the last year I played with the Ironman. And then I came back in 2000, just kind of a whirlwind thing, just came back. So I was playing with a 10 man with the Dutch boys, and I played 5 man with Bonsai Bandits. And I remember Jacko, he's like, all right, you're going to play with us? Yeah, we're going to play with you. So anyway, so play with Bonsai Bandits. Um, had a had a great event. I think we took second or third. Again, 5 mans back then weren't really thought of much, but they look good on sponsorship stuff. So
Hmm.
but I remember they had just got these new jerseys that they had mesh in the armpit area all the way down. And JT had just made these. And they're the cats meow, everyone loved them. And I remember Jacko going before he gave them to all of us, he goes, hey, I need to get these back to get your names put on them, but yeah, you're gonna use them, but yeah, we'll get to we just need to get these back.
Hmm.
And so I went and played with the 10 man, blah, blah, blah. And like 4 years later, I was going through my bag and I pull out that jersey. I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah. Hey, and I think I called Jacko. He goes, I don't need that damn jersey anymore. I'm like, okay. But anyway,
Awesome.
that's basically all I have left. I still have that cocker. It's in storage right now. I was trying to get it for this deal, but yeah, a lot of things are happening. So I'm like, I'm on a boat, so the whole boat's been rocking the whole time, and the wind's been blowing.
Yeah.
So it's been a pretty crazy deal.
Well, Teddy, you've had an amazing career, man. A lot of experiences. What would you say you're most thankful for that paintball's given you?
Uh Again, the lifetime friendships and camaraderie, the relationships I've created over all these years. Um, you know, kind of bringing the Northwest boys, the Washington Rain, those guys, into the professional realm. I mean, uh, just all those things. I mean, we're not as close as we used to be.
Mm.
I mean, but every time I go to an event, I walk around and say hi to someone that I played with, and or talk to them, or then you get some old guy who runs up on you and goes, "Hey, Teddy, Washington Rain," and I'm like, "Yeah, oh, dude," and those things. So all those memories, you know, I know you and I never played together. When I mean, I think you were just
Well,
starting
that's
when I was.
incorrect. We played Guadalajara together.
Oh, Guadalajara! I'm talking about back in the day. Back
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
day.
yeah. I know.
We did play Guadalajara together. Yeah, yeah, that event was funny because I thought it was a big game, and someone then informed me that it was actually an MXL event.
That
So I
was
had to
funny.
go out and actually practice for that, and the game has changed.
Yeah.
But I believe that all those relationships, all those things. I mean, I still talk to, and it's a small group of guys. There's probably been less than, I'm going to throw a number out there, less than 5,000 guys play professional paintball in the last 25 years, on a
Sure.
consistent
Yeah.
basis. The number's probably much lower.
Much lower. Has to
um,
be.
yeah, it has to be lower. And to be part of that group of guys, and be part of that, excuse me, and and still have the relationships that I have with these guys and the old stories.
Mhm.
I mean, Dave Thomas and I, or Opie and I, would, oh, remember that time when such and such tried to kill you? And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Well, and I go, and David was like, well, you probably shouldn't have thrown your gun at him. We'll
What
talk.
story is this?
So there's I can't think of his name, but he played. It was in England, and um, Dave Stewart. Dave Stewart. Dave Dave something. Anyway, big guy. He was a sparring partner, boxing guy. I think for Lennox Lewis or something like that. Anyway,
Oof.
he we shot him. I ran up the wire, shot him, came around and shot him, shot another guy, got in my position, turned around, shot one more guy. Dave was behind me. I think it was Dave Stewart or John, some Stewart. Anyway, guy behind me, he is walking off the field and he turns around and shoots me 6 times in the back. Ref comes up, pulls a 1-for-1 on me. And I'm
Whoa.
like, and I got up, and um back then I had a much deep I had a much bigger anger issue, not issue, but I got heated quickly, and I was 230, 235. I just literally, I'm 4 years removed from playing college football, so I'm a big guy. I'm a strong guy. This guy was made me look like I was a midget. So I mean, this guy was like 6'3", 260, still built like a brick shit house. And I mean, they didn't make camos big enough. So he was like stretching
Jeez.
those out. And anyway, so we got into it, and I took my cocker and tossed it at him. And
Whoa.
and Opie comes running and goes, whoa, 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 whoa. I think Tommy and everyone pulled me back. I'm like, and later on the night, Dave goes, "That was stupid." I go, "I know, wasn't
Yeah.
it? That was really dumb." he goes,
Oh
he
man.
goes, I still faster than him. I think I could have outran him, but we're, but no.
That's awesome.
So, but
Well, Teddy, thank you. Thank you so much for your time here. Is there anything that you want to part with for the paintball community?
um, no, I love what you're doing. I think I don't think there's too many channels like this out there, and or podcast, and I think you're doing a great job. And I think we just need to support these type of ventures, and you're awesome, and appreciate all having me on here. I'm kind of honored and befunked. Thank you.
Thank you, Teddy. Appreciate you.
All right. Bye bye.